I was 22 when everything happened. Back then, I worked the overnight shift at a grocery store called Maple Mart. It wasn't one of those giant supermarkets that stayed busy 24 hours a day. It was a medium-sized neighborhood store sitting just outside the city limits, surrounded by empty fields, an abandoned motel, and a two-lane highway that seemed to disappear into darkness. Most people hated working nights. I actually preferred them. There were fewer customers, fewer managers looking over my shoulder, and I could usually finish my work early enough to spend the last hour listening to podcasts while stocking shelves. The job wasn't glamorous, but it paid my rent while I saved money for college. My shift always started at 6 p.m. and ended at 2 a.m. By midnight, the store usually became a ghost town. The same truck drivers stopped in every week. The same elderly couple bought milk every Friday. A security guard from the nearby warehouse always came in around 12:30 to grab coffee and beef jerky before finishing his patrol. After that, nothing. Sometimes 20 or 30 minutes would pass without a single customer. The silence never bothered me. At least, not until that Thursday night. Rain had started just after sunset. Not heavy rain, just enough to keep the road shiny and almost completely empty. The parking lot reflected the white lights above the entrance like a giant mirror. Inside the store, soft music played through old ceiling speakers while I stocked canned food in aisle 7. Around 10:45 p.m., my co-worker Ethan finished counting the cash drawers. "Looks like another boring night," he laughed. "I'll take boring," I answered. He grabbed his backpack and headed toward the exit. "See you tomorrow." The automatic doors slid open. Cold air rushed inside. Then they closed behind him. I watched his truck disappear into the rain. Suddenly, I realized something. For the next 3 hours, I was completely alone. Our manager had gone home hours earlier. There wasn't another employee anywhere in the building. That wasn't unusual. It happened almost every night. But for some reason, that realization felt different this time. I ignored the feeling. At exactly 11:18 p.m., the front doors opened again. A man stepped inside. He looked completely ordinary. Mid-40s, gray jacket, dark jeans, black baseball cap. No umbrella despite the rain. His clothes were dry. That should have been my first clue. He walked straight past the shopping baskets, past the produce section, past the bakery. He never picked up a cart. He never even looked at the shelves. Instead, he slowly walked every aisle. Not browsing, not shopping, just walking. His pace never changed. Every few seconds he'd stop, tilt his head slightly, then continue. I kept stocking shelves while secretly watching him through the gaps between products. He never seemed rushed, never checked his phone, never looked at prices. He simply wandered. 15 minutes passed, then 20. Still no purchases. Finally, he approached the checkout. I expected him to place something on the counter. Instead, he smiled politely. "What time do you close?" 2 in the morning, I answered. He nodded. "You're here alone?" The question caught me off guard. I forced a laugh. "Pretty quiet tonight." His smile widened just a little. I noticed. Then he turned around and walked away. No groceries, no explanation, nothing. He disappeared back into the aisles. I stood there staring after him. Maybe he was waiting for someone. Maybe he was just strange. Retail teaches you one thing very quickly. People are weird. I shrugged it off and returned to stocking. 5 minutes later, the phone rang. Maple Mart. This is Alex speaking. Silence, not static, not a bad connection, just someone breathing. Slow, steady, like they were holding the phone inches from their mouth. Hello? Nothing. Then, click. The line disconnected. Wrong number. It happened all the time. I placed the phone back on the counter. A minute later, it rang again. Same breathing. This time, a voice whispered, "Busy tonight." I frowned. "Who's this?" No answer, only breathing. Then the call ended again. A chill crawled across my arms. I looked around the empty store. The man in the gray jacket had vanished. I checked every aisle from the register. Nothing, no movement, no sound except the humming refrigerators. I walked toward aisle 9, empty. Aisle 8, empty. Frozen foods, nobody. Then I heard something, a shopping cart, somewhere near the back, metal wheels squeaking softly. I followed the sound. The farther I walked, the quieter it became, until it stopped completely. I reached the last aisle. No cart, no customer, nothing. The back stockroom door stood slightly open. I knew I had closed it earlier. "Hello?" No reply. I pushed the door open. Boxes stacked from floor to ceiling, cleaning supplies, pallets, storage racks, completely empty. As I turned to leave, my phone vibrated in my pocket. Unknown number. I answered immediately. The same whisper returned. "You missed me." The call ended. I spun around. Still no one. My heartbeat started pounding. I hurried back toward the sales floor. The front doors were visible from halfway across the store. Standing beside them was the man in the gray jacket. He wasn't leaving. He wasn't entering. He was simply standing there, looking directly at me. Neither of us moved. The distance between us couldn't have been more than 40 feet. Then, without breaking eye contact, he smiled. Not a friendly smile, not even an angry one. It was the kind of smile that made it seem like he knew something you didn't. Slowly, he lifted one hand, not to wave, not to point, just enough for 2 fingers to tap the side of his baseball cap. Then he walked outside, into the rain. The automatic doors closed behind him. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. For several seconds, I watched through the glass. He never walked toward a vehicle. He crossed the parking lot, then disappeared into the darkness beside the abandoned motel across the road. There were no lights over there, no businesses, nothing. Only broken windows and collapsing walls. I should have forgotten about him. I almost did. Until exactly 12 minutes later, the phone rang again. The phone rang 3 times before I answered. I almost ignored it. After the strange calls earlier, every ring seemed louder than the last. I picked up the receiver anyway. "Maple Mart, this is Alex." For several seconds, there was nothing, no breathing, no static, just silence. Then a calm voice spoke. "You forgot to lock the loading door." My stomach tightened. I looked toward the hallway leading to the stockroom. There was no way anyone should have known whether that door was locked. I didn't answer. "Go check," the voice whispered. The line went dead. I stood frozen behind the register. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe the caller had guessed. But curiosity won. I grabbed the flashlight I kept beneath the counter and headed toward the back hallway. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Everything looked exactly the same as it always did. The employee break room, the mop closet, the manager's office. Nothing unusual. Then I reached the loading dock. The steel door stood open by less than an inch, just enough for cold air to drift inside. I knew I'd locked it earlier. I checked the deadbolt. It hung loose. Someone had unlocked it from the inside. A chill ran through me. I slammed the door shut and locked it again, pulling twice to make sure it wouldn't move. As I turned around, I heard footsteps. Not outside, inside the store. Slow, measured, one step, another, then silence. I hurried back toward the sales floor. Nobody. The aisles were empty. The music still played softly through the ceiling speakers. I walked to the security monitor mounted beside the manager's office. 8 camera feeds filled the screen. Front entrance, parking lot, frozen food, produce, aisles, stockroom, loading dock. Everything looked normal until camera 6 flickered. The picture distorted for half a second. When it returned, someone was standing at the end of aisle 9. The figure wore a gray jacket, black baseball cap. The same man. I immediately looked toward aisle 9. Nothing. I looked back at the monitor. He was still there, standing perfectly still, facing the camera. I hurried toward the aisle. My footsteps echoed across the polished floor. When I reached the end, it was empty. Not a single customer. I looked back toward the office. The monitor was still visible from where I stood. The figure had disappeared. I walked back slowly, trying to convince myself the camera had frozen on an old frame. That had to be it. Old systems glitched all the time. I checked the recording. The playback showed nothing. No man, no movement, just an empty aisle. My hands had started shaking. At 12:27 a.m., another customer arrived. A delivery driver still wearing his company uniform. He bought 2 energy drinks and a sandwich. I couldn't help myself. "Did you happen to see anyone outside?" He frowned. "No." "What about a man in a gray jacket?" He shook his head. "Parking lot's empty." I watched him leave. His headlights disappeared down the highway. The parking lot fell silent again. Then, every light inside the store blinked. Once, twice, 3 times. Darkness swallowed everything. Emergency lights flickered on a second later, bathing the store in a pale red glow. The refrigerators continued humming. The registers rebooted. The music stopped completely. I grabbed my phone to call my manager. No signal, not one bar. That had never happened before. The store Wi-Fi was gone too. For the first time all night, I felt completely cut off. Then I heard it, a shopping cart, slowly rolling, somewhere nearby. The sound echoed through the building, metal wheels squeaking against tile. It stopped, then rolled again. I followed the noise toward the center aisles. My flashlight swept across cereal boxes, paper towels, cleaning supplies. Nothing. The cart rolled again. Closer this time. I rounded the corner. There it was, a single shopping cart, moving by itself. It rolled only a few feet before gently stopping. Inside the basket sat one item, a gallon of milk. I stared at it. I knew that milk hadn't been there earlier. The cart hadn't been there either. Something white rested beneath the handle. A folded receipt. I unfolded it. The receipt had today's date. The timestamp read 12:31 a.m. Only one item had been purchased. Milk. Payment method. Cash. Cashier. Alex. My name. But I had never sold that milk. As I stared at the receipt, another sound echoed through the building. The automatic front doors opened. No one was standing outside. The rain had stopped. The parking lot was empty. The doors slowly closed again. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. With trembling hands, I answered. The voice sounded closer now, almost amused. "You've been helping customers all night." A pause. "But you still haven't seen your last one." The call ended. Before I could move, something heavy crashed in the stockroom behind me. hard enough to shake the shelves. I turned toward the noise. The emergency lights flickered once more. For the briefest second, I saw the silhouette of someone standing in the hallway, watching me. And then the lights went completely black. Darkness swallowed the store. For one long second, I couldn't see anything. Then the emergency lights flickered back to life. Their dull red glow barely reached the far ends of the aisles, leaving huge sections of the building buried in shadow. The crash from the stockroom still echoed in my ears. I gripped my flashlight tighter. Every sensible part of me wanted to lock myself in the manager's office and wait for the police. But another part of me knew something wasn't right. If someone was inside the store, I couldn't just ignore it. "Who's there?" I shouted. My voice bounced off the shelves before disappearing into silence. No answer. Only the constant hum of the refrigeration units. I forced myself toward the stockroom. The swinging door creaked as I pushed it open. The flashlight beam swept across stacks of cardboard boxes. Nothing. A pallet of bottled water had been knocked over. Cases were scattered across the concrete floor. One box had burst open, sending bottles rolling in every direction. It looked recent. The plastic wrapping was still slowly unraveling. Someone had done this only seconds ago. I stepped deeper into the room. That's when I noticed muddy footprints, fresh ones. They started near the loading door and disappeared behind the storage racks. The prints were large. Boots, definitely not mine. I followed them carefully. Every step seemed impossibly loud. The footprints ended at the back wall. There was nowhere else to go. No doors, no windows, just old shelves covered with inventory. I frowned. It didn't make sense. A person couldn't simply disappear. I moved one of the empty rolling ladders aside. Behind it, I found something I had never noticed before. A narrow maintenance door. It blended perfectly into the wall. There wasn't even a handle on the outside, only a small recessed latch. I pulled it open. A blast of stale air rushed out. The smell was awful. Dust, mold, something damp. My flashlight revealed a narrow staircase leading downward. I had worked there for almost a year. No one had ever mentioned a basement. I hesitated. Then my phone vibrated. One new message. Unknown number. It contained only 6 words. "Don't go down there alone." I looked around the empty stockroom. Who's sending these? No reply. The basement staircase seemed to pull me toward it. Against my better judgment, I started down. Each wooden step groaned beneath my weight. The air became colder with every step. The staircase ended in a long concrete corridor. Old pipes ran across the ceiling. Water dripped somewhere in the darkness. At the end of the hallway stood a steel door. It was slightly open. I pushed it wider. The room beyond stopped me cold. Someone had been living there. A folding chair, a sleeping bag, bottled water, canned food, a battery-powered lantern. Newspapers spread across the floor. But what caught my attention were the walls. They were covered with photographs, hundreds of them. Every employee who had worked at Maple Mart, old newspaper clippings, security camera stills, photos taken from outside the store. Some were years old. Some looked recent. My heart nearly stopped. Right in the center was a photograph of me. It showed me unlocking the employee entrance 3 mornings earlier. I had no idea anyone had been watching. Beside it, someone had written in black marker, "He stays late." I backed away slowly. My breathing became shallow. Then I noticed another table. On it sat an old cassette recorder. A small red light blinked. It was still recording. I pressed stop. The tape rewound automatically. A voice filled the room. It wasn't the mysterious caller. It was my manager. I checked the basement again. Nobody's there. The recording crackled. Another voice answered, lower, calmer. He only comes out after midnight. The tape ended. My skin crawled. Who was the second voice? Why had my manager searched this place? How much did he know? Suddenly, a loud metallic bang echoed upstairs. Then another. Someone was pounding on the loading door. 3 hard knocks. Silence. 3 more. I hurried back toward the staircase. Halfway up, I heard footsteps above me. Slow, deliberate. Someone was walking across the stockroom. Not running, walking, as if they weren't afraid of being heard. I switched off my flashlight. The basement fell completely dark. The footsteps stopped. Then, a man's voice called from upstairs. Alex? It was my manager. Relief washed over me. I'm down here. No answer. Instead, the voice repeated exactly the same way, same tone, same pause. Alex? It sounded identical. Too identical, like a recording playing on a speaker. Every instinct screamed at me not to answer again. I stayed silent. The footsteps continued for another few seconds, then faded away. I waited almost 5 full minutes before climbing the rest of the stairs. The stockroom was empty. No manager, no customer, no sign anyone had been there. My phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't an unknown number. It was my real manager. Alex, sorry I missed your call. I'm still 30 minutes away. Is everything okay? I stared at the message. If he was 30 minutes away, then who had just called my name? Before I could think, the security monitors in the office all switched back on. Every camera was working again. Every camera except one. Camera 8. The one aimed directly at the abandoned motel across the highway. Instead of static, it showed a single sentence in white letters across a black screen. He's coming back inside. The first police officer arrived less than 4 minutes after I called. It felt like 40. By the time the flashing lights filled the parking lot, I was shaking so hard I could barely unlock the front door. 2 officers stepped inside. One stayed with me while the other searched outside. I told them everything: the woman, the black SUV, the man behind the dumpster, the strange phone call, the note, the missing security cameras, everything. They took it seriously, at least at first. One officer walked around the building with his flashlight. The other reviewed the security footage. After about 15 minutes, they came back inside. We found footprints behind the building, one officer said, but the rain washed most of them away. He paused. Unfortunately, your outside cameras stopped recording around 10:40. I stared at him. What? They were disconnected. Disconnected? He nodded. Not broken. Someone unplugged the power cable. A cold feeling settled in my stomach. That meant whoever had been outside knew exactly where the camera wiring was. That wasn't random. That was planned. The officers stayed until my manager arrived. His name was Rick. He looked annoyed more than concerned. I told corporate we needed better cameras, he muttered. The police asked him whether anyone besides employees knew where the camera connections were. Rick shrugged. Maintenance? Electricians? Former workers? Pretty much anyone who's been here long enough. That answer didn't help. The officers suggested I take a few days off. Rick wasn't thrilled. We're already short-staffed. One officer looked directly at him. I'd strongly recommend she doesn't work nights alone for a while. Rick finally agreed. I went home just before sunrise. I don't think I slept more than an hour. Every sound outside my apartment made me jump. Every passing car made me peek through the blinds. Around noon, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I ignored it. A few seconds later, another call. Unknown number. Then another. 5 calls in less than 2 minutes. I answered on the 6th. Silence. I could hear breathing. Slow. Calm. Then a man's voice. "You weren't supposed to call the police." My blood froze before I could speak. He hung up. I immediately called the number back. "The number you have dialed is not in service." Impossible. I had just answered it. I reported it to the detective assigned to my case. He asked me to send screenshots. I did. An hour later, he called back. "The carrier can't find that number." "What do you mean?" "It doesn't exist." I laughed nervously. "It called me." "I know." That conversation stayed with me for weeks. 3 days later, I returned to work. Only day shifts. Everything seemed normal. Customers, coffee, lottery tickets, families buying snacks. For a moment, I convinced myself the nightmare was over. Then, an elderly man walked into the store. He bought bottled water, nothing unusual. As he reached the door, he stopped. Without turning around, he quietly said, "They're watching." Then he left. I ran outside. He was gone. Not walking away, not getting into a car. Gone. The parking lot was empty. I asked nearby customers if they had seen him. Nobody had. That evening, I checked my locker before leaving. Inside was a small white envelope. No stamp, no name. Just one sentence written in black ink. "You talk too much." My knees nearly gave out. Only employees had access to that room. Someone had entered while I was working. Someone had stood exactly where I was standing now. The detective came immediately. Everyone working that shift was questioned. No one admitted seeing anything. No fingerprints, no security footage, nothing. It was as if the envelope had appeared out of thin air. That's when the detective told me something he hadn't mentioned before. "We've had 3 reports." I looked at him. 3 reports of what? He opened a folder. Night workers. He slid 3 photographs across the table. A gas station cashier, a bartender, a grocery employee. Every one of them had reported strange calls, vehicles waiting outside, people watching them, anonymous notes. Then, nothing. No robbery, no assault, just weeks of fear, until they quit. My heart started racing. "What happened to them?" He hesitated. "We only located 2. "What about the 3rd? He slowly closed the folder. "No one has seen her in almost 8 months." The room became completely silent. For the first time, I realized something terrifying. Whoever had been following me wasn't after money. They weren't trying to rob the store. They weren't interested in the cash register. They were studying people, choosing them, testing them, waiting, and somehow I had survived long enough to become one of the few who could still tell the story. I couldn't stop thinking about what the detective had said. One victim was still missing, not dead, not found, just gone. That thought followed me everywhere. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. Every time someone looked at me for more than a few seconds, I wondered if they were watching me. 3 days later, Detective Harris called. "We found something." His voice was serious. "Can you come to the station?" I arrived 20 minutes later. He was waiting with a thick file sitting on his desk. He didn't waste time. "The black SUV you described was seen by traffic cameras." My heart skipped. "We tracked it across 3 counties." "So you found the owner?" He shook his head. "The plates were stolen." "Of course they were, but the vehicle wasn't." He placed a photograph on the table. It showed the SUV entering an old industrial district just outside town. And then it never came back out. I frowned. How is that possible? There are only 2 roads in and out. He leaned back in his chair. We searched the area yesterday. What did you find? Nothing. That answer didn't make sense. Then he slid another photo toward me. An abandoned warehouse, broken windows, rusted loading docks, weeds growing through cracked concrete. It was locked, he said, but someone has been inside recently. How do you know? Fresh tire tracks. A search warrant was approved that afternoon. The next morning I stayed home while officers searched the building. The weight was unbearable. Around noon, Detective Harris called again. His voice sounded different. We found something. What? A room. He paused. A room that shouldn't have been there. Hidden behind a false wall at the back of the warehouse was a narrow hallway. At the end of it was a steel door. Inside, there were shelves, boxes, old filing cabinets, and hundreds of photographs, not landscapes, not buildings, people, night shift workers, cashiers, bartenders, hotel clerks, security guards, warehouse employees. Every photo had been taken without the person's knowledge. Some were taken through store windows, others from parking lots. Some showed people unlocking their cars after work. Others showed them walking home. One wall had maps covered with colored pins. Each pin marked a workplace. My workplace was one of them. Detective Harris told me there were handwritten notes beside many of the photos. Simple observations. Works alone every Thursday. Leaves at 12:07. Usually parks near the dumpster. Carries pepper spray. Talks to customers. Then they found something that made the entire investigation change. A locked cabinet. Inside were wallets, employee ID cards, cell phones, name tags, personal belongings. Some belonged to people who had reported being followed. Others belonged to people no one had reported missing. Then one officer found a small silver necklace. It matched the one worn by the missing cashier in the detective's file. The room suddenly became a crime scene. Forensic investigators spent hours collecting evidence, fingerprints, hair, fibers, DNA, everything. The news never reported most of it. The police kept the details quiet. They didn't want whoever was responsible to know how much they had discovered. For the first time since everything started, I believed it might finally be over. I was wrong. That night, just after midnight, my phone vibrated. Unknown number. I stared at it. I almost ignored it. Instead, I answered. Silence. Then, a calm male voice. You weren't supposed to see the warehouse? I couldn't breathe. Detective Harris hadn't told anyone where they searched, not even the local news. Who is this? I whispered. The man chuckled softly. You think we only had one place? My stomach dropped. We? Click. The line went dead. I called Detective Harris immediately. He answered on the second ring. Before I could say a word, he interrupted me. Don't leave your apartment. Why? We've just had another report. Another report of what? He took a slow breath. Someone matching your description was seen working tonight. My blood ran cold. But I'm at home. There was silence. Then he quietly said the words that still haunt me. Then whoever they saw wasn't you. Neither Detective Harris nor I said a word. I could hear paper shuffling on his end of the line. Finally, he spoke. Lock every door. Don't answer if anyone knocks. I'm sending a patrol car. The call ended. I checked every lock in my apartment twice. Then I pulled every curtain shut. The silence inside my apartment felt unbearable. Every creak sounded like footsteps. Every passing car made my heart race. 20 minutes later, red and blue lights flashed outside. 2 officers knocked. They searched my apartment from top to bottom. Nothing. One of them stayed outside until sunrise. The next morning, Detective Harris asked me to come to the station. He looked exhausted. There were dark circles under his eyes. He placed a laptop on the table and pressed play. Security footage filled the screen. The timestamp read 11:46 p.m. It showed someone walking into a convenience store nearly 20 miles from my apartment. The woman behind the counter smiled. The customer wore a gray hoodie, black jeans, white sneakers, the same clothes I had been wearing 3 nights earlier. The figure turned toward the camera. My heart nearly stopped. From that angle, it looked exactly like me. Same height, same haircut, same build. Even the way the person walked looked familiar. I stared at the screen in disbelief. That's impossible. Detective Harris nodded slowly. We know. He paused the video. There are differences. He zoomed in. The person's left ear had a small scar. I didn't. Their right hand had a tattoo near the thumb. Mine didn't. But from a distance, I whispered, it looks like me. Exactly. The detective folded his arms. We think someone wants witnesses to remember your face. The room suddenly felt colder. You mean they're trying to make people believe you're involved? I couldn't speak. Someone wasn't just following me anymore. Someone was building a false version of my life. The detective opened another folder. There have been 4 sightings. He laid photographs across the desk. Different towns, different dates, different stores. Every employee described the same customer. Quiet, polite, always arriving just before closing, always watching, always leaving without incident. Until the employees started receiving strange phone calls days later. The pattern was identical to mine. My stomach tightened. So they're starting over? We think so. Before we could continue, another detective rushed into the room. Harris. He looked serious. They found another location. My detective stood immediately. What is it? A motel. Less than 15 minutes later, we arrived at an old roadside motel that had been abandoned for years. Police tape surrounded the entrance. Inside, everything was covered in dust, except one room, room 12. The dust outside the door had fresh footprints. Inside the room were folding chairs, empty food containers, a battery-powered radio, several disposable phones, and one wall completely covered with photographs. Some were mine. Photos of me leaving work, shopping for groceries, walking into my apartment, talking to neighbors. One picture had been taken through my own living room window. I felt sick. Whoever had done this had been standing outside my home, watching me. The investigators carefully removed every photograph. Then one officer called everyone over. Hidden beneath the bed was a small notebook. Every page contained dates, times, locations, and names. Some names had check marks beside them. Others had circles. Mine had neither. Instead, beside my name were 3 words. Not ready yet. Nobody in the room spoke. Detective Harris slowly closed the notebook. We're dealing with an organized group. As we walked outside, I finally asked the question that had been haunting me. Why me? He looked toward the abandoned motel. I don't think they chose you. What do you mean? I think... He hesitated. I think you interrupted whatever they were planning. That answer should have made me feel better. Instead, it terrified me even more, because if I had interrupted their plan, Then somewhere out there, they were already looking for someone else. And that night, as I sat alone in my apartment trying to convince myself it was over, my laptop suddenly turned on by itself. The webcam light glowed. Then a single sentence appeared across the screen. "Stop talking to the police." No one had touched the keyboard. The message on my laptop changed everything. I called Detective Harris. Within hours, Detective Harris and his team secured my apartment and traced the source of several clues back to the abandoned motel. The investigation uncovered an organized group that had spent years secretly following ordinary people, studying their routines, photographing their lives, and sometimes creating lookalikes to confuse witnesses and divert suspicion. The person pretending to be me was never identified. Neither were the leaders behind the operation. Police recovered hundreds of photographs, fake identification cards, disguises, burner phones, and notebooks filled with names, addresses, and surveillance records. My name was only one of many. Detective Harris believed I wasn't chosen at random. I had simply noticed them before they were ready. That mistake forced the group to abandon their operation earlier than planned, leaving behind just enough evidence for investigators to expose part of their network. Months later, several members were arrested, but many disappeared without a trace. The case officially remains unsolved. I quit my job at the gas station. I moved to another city, changed my phone number, deleted every social media account. Started over. Life slowly returned to normal. Or at least, that's what I tell myself. Sometimes, when I'm walking home after dark, I catch someone standing across the street. They never wave, they never speak, they simply watch. Maybe they're strangers, maybe they're not. I'll probably never know. But one thing is certain, whenever I hear a phone ring late at night, I let it ring. Because some mysteries are better left unanswered.